Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jen if you're new here. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in October and November. I'm going to be going through these from the lowest rated to the highest rated. And I do have quite a few 5-star reads that I read the last couple of months, so I'm really excited to get into these. The first book we're going to start off with is a 2-star book, and unfortunately, it's going to be a pretty unpopular opinion. That is King Sorrow by Joe Hill. I loved Joe Hill's Nosferatu. It's one of my favorite horror books of all time. His other books that I've read have just been okay for me, but I was really excited when I started reading this because it had that same feel to it that Nosferatu had, but all of the real life references and the multitude of Stephen King references kept continuously pulling me out of the story. And I also did not like any of the characters. I didn't have anybody to root for other than King Sorrow, and I don't think that that was the point of the book. So this just did not land for me, and that's why I ultimately gave it 2 stars. That's King Sorrow by Joe Hill. And then in the 3-star range, and honestly, this might even be a 2-star for me, is Bride by Hazelwood. This is a paranormal romance where she is a vampire and her love interest is a werewolf. I did wind up really liking the ending of it, and it made me excited for Mate by Hazelwood. I feel like this one was ultimately forgettable. In fact, I'm having trouble really remembering the plot outside of the fact that she's a vampire and he's a werewolf. So I will continue on with Mate in the series and see how that one goes. But I wasn't the biggest fan of this. I think it was just okay, and that's why I wound up giving it 3 stars. That's Bride by Hazelwood. And then moving on to my 4-star read, we have The Ghostwoods by C.J. Cooke. In this one, there is a crumbling manor in the middle of the woods, and unwed mothers, unwed pregnant women are sent to give birth in this manor, and there are some sinister fungal horror happenings in the woods and inside of this manor, and I really enjoyed this one. This was the October read-along pick for the Horror Spotlight Discord, and I believe that everyone who read this one found it to be a positive and enjoyable read. So I really like this one. If you like fungal horror especially, this was just a creepy atmospheric read that I really enjoyed. That's The Ghostwoods by C.J. Cooke. And now we are moving into my 5-star reads. I have 5 of these, which is pretty unheard of, but I just had the best time reading these books. And I think because I read horror all year round, when October hit and everything was spooky and everyone was reading horror, I read a lot of romance. And so the first 3 of these are going to be romance reads, although they do have some paranormal in them, or in at least one of them. And then the other 2 are some of the best fantasy that I have read this year. So let me get into my 5-star reads. The first one is Soul Searching by Lyla Sage. This is a Western paranormal romance, but I didn't get really the Western vibes outside of there just being some cattle and an old cowboy that I think is a callback to her actual Western romance. This is more of a paranormal ghost haunting type of romance, which I have never read before. Our main character is a struggling photographer, and she has come back to her town of Sweetwater, and her twin sister sets her up with a friend of hers. And by setting up, I mean that she is going to be staying with him and has a job opportunity, but of course he winds up being her love interest. And the twin sisters are able to see ghosts. Now, they grew up in pretty much an antique shop because their parents run an antique shop. So it's the perfect setting for being able to interact with spirits. And I just really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the setting. I enjoyed the ghost interactions. And so I gave Soul Searching by Lyla Sage 5 stars. And then my next 5 star read was Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. And I was so excited to see that this just won the Young Adult Fiction category for the Goodreads Choice Awards. This one is a fake dating scenario between a girl and a hockey player. And I just really enjoy Lynn Painter's books, her writing, and the characters in this were really great. If you enjoyed reading Lynn Painter's Better Than the Movies, I would highly recommend Fake Skating, or the other way around. If you have read Fake Skating this year, I would definitely recommend checking out Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is Fake Skating by Lynn Painter. And then up next is a book that I don't think I've seen any negative reviews about. Everyone seems to be loving this one, and I did too. That is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. The setting in this is very reminiscent of Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. In fact, this cover looks very much like Gilmore Girls. And I didn't find the characters themselves to be very Gilmore Girl-like, but I did really enjoy the characters. The main character just lost her mom, and her sister is going to be taking care of her mother's inn, but she's helping her father take care of some things and grieve their mother. So she is moving into this inn to take care of it, and he is the baker next door. If you have not read this one yet, it would actually make a very good December holiday read. This story does go through Christmas and New Year's, so this is actually the perfect time to read this if you haven't read it yet. That is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. And now we are getting into some incredible fantasy. The first one is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. For me, the experience of reading Raven Scholar was the best part. This is a mashup of fantasy, murder mystery, dystopian. There is a lot going on in this book, but I had the best time reading this. I never knew where this was going to go, and there is a lot of really imaginative, dark fantasy elements that were just really compelling. And this is a series that I'm going to look forward to and read as soon as each book is released. So this centers around pretty much a lot of political intrigue where the emperor has a certain amount of time that he's allowed to rule. And it is a large amount of time. I'm thinking like 24 years. And then when his term is up, the factions in this world, I believe there are 7, but one doesn't compete. The remaining 6 will compete to see who will become the next emperor. So even though this sounds a bit like some of the dystopian books you have read before, it is actually quite different in big and subtle ways. There are competitions that are built by the contestant, and you can actually concede to the other competitors, but there is death, there is a murder mystery involved here, and there are a lot of twists and turns, and really just you never know what to expect with this one, and it made it such a fun fantasy read. And that is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. And then lastly, we have a contender for Best Book of the Year for me, and that is The Will of the Many by James Islington. If you are interested in my full spoiler thoughts, I do have a spoiler-filled reading vlog that I will link below, but this one follows a boy named This who is really hiding his true identity, and he is in an orphanage, working in a prison, and a high-ranking official discovers him, not knowing who he is, but discovers that he would be a good fit to go into this school academy and find out some secrets that his newly adopted father is wanting to know about this school. And this is another one where you don't know what to expect. You don't know who to trust. There are brutal scenes, there are creepy scenes, there are things that shocked me. And again, I just had an amazing time reading this one. And that is my last 5-star read and the last book that I read in October and November. That's The Will of the Many by James Islington. I am so glad that you joined me today. Be sure to leave me a comment if you have read any of these or if you are excited about any of these. And while you're down there, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.